At 4 p.m., calling this meeting to order. Please join me in reciting the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for all, with liberty and justice for all.
Looks like it's for pros.
Huh? Great.
And that's
Good. All right, moving along, members present include myself, Chair Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Levenheim, Supervisor Michael Albert, Township Manager Julia Hylika, Admin Coordinator Diana Salvi, Solicitor Ron Karasak, and Engineer John Tressler. First order of business is announcements. We had a standing executive session this evening from 5:31 p.m. to 6:00 p.m. with regard to personnel in the Department of Public Works and litigation regarding Back 9 MX litigation injunction. Second, we had an emergency meeting on July 16th regarding parks, and we'll get into the results of those actions in a little bit here. And finally, our meeting schedule changes. So in August, our meetings are the 13th and 27th, which are the second and fourth Tuesday of each month at 6. So that remains the same. We do not have the minutes of the June 26th meeting yet, so do I hear a motion to table that?
Motion to table.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, do I hear a second?
second.
Second, Mr. Albert, question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have two sets of bills. The July 10th bill pack, $73,220.82, which includes general fund, escrow fund, and the capital improvement grant fund. And then we have today's of $110,939, which is from the general fund and the escrow fund. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Albert, any questions?
I just want to make sure we all know, and public information as this goes out. So we agree that HR is missing from this accidentally, and we're gonna make sure we fix that next time.
Otherwise, it is the same one that was online too.
Yeah, this is the one that's online, it's missing payroll, so.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, on reports, we'll proceed first to Tara on I-80 and 611. You have some decently good news to talk about.
Yes,
A lot of other interesting stuff, so.
yes, some good news and interesting stuff. My name, for those that don't know, my name is Tara Mezzanotte. I am currently representing you guys as your liaison to PennDOT and NJDOT for I-80 and 611 matters. While I am there not speaking for your township, I can speak to principles that you've shared with me on how you feel about things, and I can ask all kinds of questions that produce all kinds of interesting information. So I was at the tail end, Congressman Cartwright had been hosting meetings with PennDOT and National Park Service, Federal Highways, for a number of months. We got in at the tail end, the last two meetings, we participated in while they were working out what has now happened. And the good news is that they will be not altering the slope at all. This phase one they were talking about is no longer going to happen. Instead, they will be putting up fences so that any hazards, rock, trees, whatever, from the slope don't reach the roadway.
This is the 611 or the?
611, 611. This is all, I'm only talking, right, this is really primarily right now about 611. So the very good news on that is they're gonna be able to open theoretically 2 lanes, where they were talking about hopefully opening 1 lane with a light. You know, if you've done the 3-minute lights, you know what that looks like on a good day. What they're talking about now is, I think there may still be a light, but I just don't see it as that extend a light thing. I see this as, workable. So that's really good news for safety reasons, for detour reasons, for business reasons. It's just really wonderful. So they still need a permit, but it's not like the other permit because they're not altering the slope. And once they get that permit, they're supposedly gonna take 8 to 10 weeks to do what's necessary. That I do believe that's still because I think there'll be a light that involves opening the roadway so that they can run conduit. And if they do that, they would need to have an archaeologist on site because of the potential for Native American artifacts. And it's a highly rich Native American area, as Smithfield Township knows rather. So it's good news, but things can go wrong when you're with that kind of system. So I thank you for letting me be there representing you guys and to be able to have this information firsthand. So that's the good news.
Absolutely.
So the report, though, that's not about that, things are happening quickly. So I plopped this on your desk, on your table there. I have an update, we're gonna be presenting this to COG on Monday, and it's how local government can help during the 2025 preliminary engineering for the I-8611 projects. Last, I think I was here, we were passing the resolution, hopefully getting the project in the tip, which we successfully did. So funded are, so I'm just really on the cover. Funded are the rockfall mitigation project for 611, the retaining wall project for 611, and another retaining wall project for 611. That's going into preliminary engineering 2025. Fact, done, it's funded, it's gonna happen. We also had in your resolution the request for a transportation study, because we need to start somewhere, and we said to NEPA, your section failed first, you might as well start being, and with that as your responsibility, and that is happening as a part of preliminary engineering. So they will be looking at some kind of a transportation study, and we will have a seat at the table to suggest pieces of that. And that's now simultaneous, while on the Jersey side, we have ongoing preliminary engineering for our retaining wall and rockfall mitigation. So we now have 5 projects. So that's why I show you on page 2 that we have our disaster. We truly have 5 multi-year simultaneous projects with no dual state by state coordination and no long-term solution yet. But to get there, we got to start somewhere, and we have started somewhere. We got the 5 projects. The explosion has occurred. Part of the complications that I was hyper aware of in the Delaware Water Gap, I'm moving on to page 3. Part of the complications that I was hyper aware of in the Delaware Water Gap, I knew of because they're the same federal laws that apply to the New Jersey Department of Transportation. Oh, very nice. Thank you. Thank you. So they're the same laws on the left that apply to the New Jersey Department of Transportation projects on the Jersey side. We liked that Jersey didn't recognize these things because it slowed things down and gave us time to uncover certain things that are appropriate on the Jersey side. We don't like this on the Pennsylvania side. I believe I've been looking at the autopsy of what happened over the past 2.5 years. Why was this road not open yet? Why couldn't they have done what they're gonna do now? Why did PennDOT think they could take a lot of rock off that slope and then have to come back with a new plan to take a little rock off that slope? I do believe it's because federal highways did not know the rules as they pertain and the laws with the Native American tribal nations, the federally recognized tribes. So I think that is part of the delay problem, and I'm hyper into presenting on Monday a resolution that I'm gonna be touching on when I'm done with this, for the municipalities to pass that will give your legislators, your federal legislators, the request formally from you to do things to avoid these kind of delays when it comes to 611. We want to learn. So I just want to read off these laws. So it's the National Environmental Policy Act, the National Historic Preservation Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, and the Archaeological Resources Protection Act. They are all complicated. They fall under 2 big bins. NEPA, that's the EIS, or the environmental assessment or the environmental impact statement, section 106. And thank you for being there for our meetings we've had with Jersey on these, where you get educated about this. Section 106 is the historic properties. Significant historic resources in the Delaware Water Gap, 2 have not been identified and have not been requested to be determined if they are eligible to be in the National Register. The resolution that's going to be before you for next month that you'll consider is asking federal highways, since this is a federal action that needs, if it weren't for the federal highways and this federal action, we wouldn't need to know if this designation should be here for our Delaware Water Gap now. It's only because they're in town about to do something to what might be eligible to be in the National Register. And that's the Delaware Water Gap as a national natural landmark and a national historic landmark. Those are big independent designations for like the most precious special places we know of, like out west. Okay, so just because people can't see the sky that's blue doesn't mean it's not blue. You know, just because nobody's looked at the Delaware Water Gap through this lens doesn't mean it's not what I'm describing as very well could be, these things. So the resolution is going on record saying, would you? The Native American tribes, I have permission to say this, they have requested for federal highways to determine if the Delaware Water Gap is a traditional cultural property or landscape. That's another one of these very big designations. So they made that request a bit ago as it relates to the Jersey project, knowing the Pennsylvania projects were going to happen. You know what, and kind of knowing this is going on and it's may delay things, fine with it, because on the Jersey side, we don't mind that. We're not fine with delay at all right now. We need to get all this done now for 6/11 so that we don't find out a year and a half from now. We should have asked for this, or somebody starts asking for this and it delays these projects. So there's a solution to making sure this goes quickly, and that is there is a mechanism to combine that NEPA EIS requirement study and the historic properties studies into one package. And that is also what the resolution is asking for. It mentions that for these studies to happen, the minute you are in an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement, you are back to a requirement to look at alternatives. We're back to tunnel, bridges, bypasses. Not that we like one or the other. We are at the great place of really they need to be looked at. So that's the next page. I show you your possibilities. They will take a look at them. And again, they're just required. We're not the ones that are going to be delaying anything here. We're just saying, we know it all up front and we're wanting everybody to know this so nobody is asking silly questions that delay things, because again, we do not want delay. So I think that about covers it. Your resolution will say that you continue to support and encourage every possible action to safely open and maintain all lanes of 6/11 and I-80 corridor, including emergency projects, so we don't want to slow anything down. Knowlton and Hardwick already passed resolutions asking for some of this, so you are supporting their resolutions. I think it's important. We're a little ahead of the game in the experiences with this, that we go on record first. You're expecting a full environmental impact statement. This is important with a lead agency, not Federal Highway, not PennDOT, not New Jersey DOT, and not the National Park Service. There is a mechanism where you can get a lead agency to oversee all this. That's not one of these agencies that would, perception or otherwise, we have issues with in our communities.
Sure.
And it tells your congressmen and senators that we like your support for all of that, Questions?
So we would put this on the agenda for the
August 13th.
August 13th meeting.
And if you go to COG on Monday, you can do that too.
Got the preview,
What time is the COG meeting?
10,
10 a.m. That
Is it still at the
Center?
fire?
emergency.
Emergency center?
I'll be there wearing my other hat, so you can vote on this as the alternate.
Oh,
Report them, y'all. Wow. Oh,
Thank
I've
you.
got a couple here.
Hi,
Sorry.
I want to know if this presentation can be put on the website.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'd love to read it.
Yes, we'll definitely add that.
My question was, is there any suggested language to use in letters to our representatives and senators?
Thank you for that. We don't need that right now. You can simply really go to their contact page and thank them for all they're doing related to the 611 and I-80 Delaware Water Gap situation. Everybody is all hands on deck. As a matter of fact, I think it's important to mention, then Representative Rosemary Brown in 2019 heard what we were saying about the smoke on the horizon, when I didn't know how bad this was gonna be. I knew it would be bad years later. She brought together all your state and federal laws in a meeting, and they were represented, and we started telling them then. Coming down the pipe. So they've all been fully engaged since then, waiting to know what to do, when to do it, and they've all responded. So you can really, whoever your rep is, say, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, yes.
Is the Appalachian Trail a historic register?
Oh, yes, the Appalachian Trail has its own, a unique designation as an Appalachian, a national scenic trail. So yes, in the Delaware Water Gap, that has a designation. The Middle Delaware Wild and Scenic River is designated. Sunfish Pond at the top of Tammany is a national natural landmark. Like I'm talking about, the whole water gap could also be such. And for the website, what I'll also do is, this. Supervisor Lovenheim mentioned, this one that shows the alternatives, they're little, you can't read it. This is just made to be like, oh, by the way, you'll be looking at alternatives. What I'll do is I will make a special packet for the website that'll include these blown up,
Or
one of
just
these.
a URL, we can go to, a link. So we can see it all, either one.
Yeah, now you'll get it together.
But I think if it's a link, anybody around
Well,
here
we're
can
gonna
take a
have to
look.
look at-
Well, so I'm gonna give you the PDF. Julia will put it up on the site, and then that'll become the link.
All right.
It'll come to me. We got this.
We can also link the resolutions on the same page that are hosted on our e-code.
All the resolutions that we made on this.
Was there a question over there? Okay, we good?
Awesome. Thank
All
you.
right, I'm
Thank
gonna
you so much.
excuse myself if you don't. mind.
Oh,
May I ask a question?
How are you?
Go ahead, Pete. He's on Zoom.
Well, thank you. And I think the camera's frozen from you guys. It's just a logo. Tara, I appreciate the great work you're doing. You rattled off a list of a bunch of agencies weighing in on this, and I just wonder if the recent Chevron decision of the U.S. Supreme Court had been considered when dealing with all those agencies.
No, we're putting out a house fire right now. And we're willing to use whatever water we have. Not
I think
concerned.
Chevron decision's about the size of the Pacific Ocean if you want to put out a fire.
I understood, but just to answer your question, no, it didn't come up in the meetings I was in, and if we get to that, we get to that.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for your answer.
Sure,
And
you're
thanks
welcome.
for work. And if we can help, please keep letting us. We need that road open.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have
You're welcome.
safe travels.
Thank you. Get out before the pouring rain.
Yeah.
We have everything we need for the draft resolution, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Good night. Thank you very much. See you next week.
Sounds good. Ron, we'll proceed to the solicitor's report. If there's anything you want to note.
Okay, well, I usually send in a written report, but the
Just anything that you,
But, well,
Nothing.
it's, you know, I have a few things here just to mention so people know what's been going on. We reviewed the 3 Point Garden Road Major Subdivision Preliminary Plan that had come in, at least briefly reviewed that. Julie received an extension of time from the Verizon wireless cell tower in order to have that matter heard in a timely basis. I received a number of emails and easement agreements for my review regarding the Delaware water line for the 3 Smithfield residents that secure water from that line along Cherry Valley Road. There was discussions that I had with the township manager and the township supervisor regarding an emergency meeting, and Jacob taught me something with respect to emergency meetings. I did review the park submission policy that was submitted, along with reviewing the ZHB or zoning hearing board decision that came out on Mountain Manor and the back 9. I prepared an injunction involving Mountain Manor and back 9 for moving forward, assuming I get authorization by the board. I also received petitions for intervention filed by Healthy Minds and Water Gap with respect to the Carroll petition, where she is attempting to invalidate ordinance number 238. And I also filed answers to those petitions. I recently prepared a volunteer release indemnification and hold harmless agreement. And I also prepared the standard solicitor's report that was forwarded to the township with my bill. And that pretty much gives everyone an update as to what's been going on.
perfect. Anyone, anything else?
Just a, yeah,
Go ahead.
I know it's not on the agenda, so we can't discuss it, but so as I understand the water line for Delaware Water Gap, we're gonna have to put that on the agenda for next
Right,
time.
we're not able to secure the approval of the 2 whole
Or
house.
3.
John,
Thank you, Jacob. We've been working on several projects over the past several weeks. First and foremost is Wellness Park. When we submitted the PIND, we got what is called hits, which means that there's a possibility of bats, fish, bog turtles, or other things in the area. We're not too concerned about the bats. The fish are similar to what we encountered when we did the fishing dock, and we were able to get that cleared successfully. Bog turtles, we checked that out, and we are outside by 150 feet of any potential habitat, which means that that is no longer an issue for us. So we got all those potential hits cleared. We had met a couple of weeks ago with the Conservation District. They made a couple of suggestions for revisions to the plan, which are being completed right now. And we will resubmit back in a week or so. The bike park, that is under review. It's been there for about 30 days. We should get comments back very soon. Airstrip Road, the developer is finishing up the construction of that, and along with all the site improvements at Bygone, we've been inspecting that. Westfield Commons, we attended a PennDOT scoping meeting last week. And there are several things that came out of that, but I don't think we have to go into that detail right now. And the master site plan for with DCNR, we've been going back and forth a little bit, but we think we have that all resolved at this point.
So that's waterfront? Master plan?
River's Edge.
River's Edge.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
All good.
So that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
No, it's not good. Any of you?
Oh, there's one question in the back.
Go ahead, Margaret.
Yeah, he mentioned, the bike park was under review. Who's reviewing that?
Conservation District.
And they're also doing the master site plan?
No. We met with them on Wellness Park. And we, prior to making formal application, they reviewed our plans with us and made a couple suggestions, which we're incorporating into the plan. And then they will be submitted for formal review.
To be clear, the permitting that we're pursuing for River's Edge at the moment is not related to the master site plan. That is just redesigning the drainage inside the pump track itself.
So that's all they're reviewing right now is the drain?
Correct. Yeah, you'll know when the other committee meets, because you had to wait for DCNR to be okay with the scope.
Yes.
So,
When-
yeah,
When the other committee meets, like the bike park committee?
yeah,
Okay, will that meeting be advertised?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, they just had to get clearance because we had the grant to do the study. So now that that's been approved with TNM Associates as the vendor, now that can start. So we got your info, so we'll certainly let you know. And I don't know when we're gonna be ready to announce the launch of that, but
Alex and I spoke and he thought in about 2 weeks.
all right, so we'll be in touch.
all right, thank you.
Do we know how many people will be sort of on that?
No,
I mean,
the committee or something?
Yeah, the committee that we discussed a while back.
No, that's pretty much up to the township and Alex to put in a committee, but there will be meetings that will be open to the public for their input. There will also be interviews of the public as well.
Like
So there's,
surveys.
right, so there's gonna be plenty of opportunity for the public to participate and offer comment.
Would I be able to speak about the zoning which affects the area that we live next to the airport road?
Sure, under.
Can it come up here because you.
Well, I was gonna say, under the public comment, so probably toward the end, but in a few minutes we'll be, yeah,
Appreciate that.
that works. Awesome. So,
Yeah, I had one more question.
sure,
The bike park right now is solely just where the bike park is?
Yeah.
And that's where people are supposed to be riding their bikes?
yes,
I mean, people can ride their bikes on the paths as well. I mean,
Right.
On the other side of the broadhead.
Okay, but the people that ride their bikes, the only reason why I'm asking is because the other week, I came home very, very late.
Mhm.
Because I worked in Pocono Carnival, came home anywhere between 11:30 and 1:30 in the morning. And the one night, someone came out of the path on the left side, shot straight across the road in pitch dark. And I almost smashed them.
like on a bike or,
Yeah, they were on a bike
okay.
through the woods
Mhm.
in the dark at like
Well, they're
11:30, whatever it was in the morning.
they're not supposed to do that because all the.
Yeah,
bikes-
I realize that, but my thing is. Right now, nothing in that area is really being. Monitored.
Well, so we'll get into that in a second after township manager's report, but yeah, we're going to
That's
talk.
my liability as a resident down there. If I hit someone on a bike. Who do I come after?
Right, well, we can certainly, I don't know if we can answer that exact question, but we're going to answer the monitoring question because. It's a joint park with Middle Smithfield, so we'll get into that, but we are going to have their agreement in order to change.
Because it's a liability for us.
Sure. We'll definitely. Julia, do you want to talk about manager's report?
Sure, I've got two quick things. The township was awarded a $40,000 grant to help fund the removal of the old and unfortunately rather decrepit house at Marshall's Falls. That is a 1-to-1 grant match, which means that there's another $40,000 coming from the DCED grant that the township has already received. That will match those funds. And the other really good news, the township earlier today at approximately 4:30 when the mail got dropped off, received $340,000 worth of reimbursement checks for Marshall's Falls Phase 1. So we still have 3.5 grants that we're still waiting to hear from agencies for. But this is a good chunk of the money and we're still working to bring it in.
Fantastic.
I would add that, well, the reason taking down this house is so important is not only that it's falling down, but it's going to be the site of a much bigger parking lot that we can put there so that we can accommodate a lot of people who want to go to the falls.
Julie, I'm sorry, your last comment, you said 340,000?
340,000. We've received reimbursement for the DCD grant, that was 100,000, and the DCD LSA grant, that was 240.
That's not new grant money, that's just cash flow.
Right.
Right.
It's expected.
Yes,
But we had to finish certain steps before we could proceed them.
cool. All right. Anything else, Julie?
Nope, that's all I have.
Cool. I don't know if y'all had any comments for supervisors' comments, but I just wanted to thank everyone that helped us have a successful weekend in Minnesink Park and Marshall's Falls Park. We'll get into some of the data that we have so far in a second, but it was miles better than what we had, certainly over the last 10 years. So thanks to everyone for making that simple and having that emergency meeting to do that. Did any of y'all have any other comments? Okay, just to get into the data on that, it brought in $1,780. We utilized cash, and we also used Square, so you could tap to pay and use a chip card. And we had a total of 356 people admitted to those parks, and approximately 3,500 folks chose not to pay, so they were not admitted.
3,500 people?
Correct. And they didn't want to pay the $5. So we're gonna, examine costs and whatnot, but broadly, it was successful, and I think, we didn't have to spend any time picking up trash or any of that. And the receptacles that we have there are working great. And hopefully that trend continues, so we, by the end, don't lose very much. Fortunately, we did budget, a set amount for this. But now that we're collecting money, it helps offset that, which is great. It will help us make some improvements because we're working on gating and whatnot. So the other change.
I'm sorry, can you go back 1 second? So what period of time did this cover the stats that you did?
Just 2 days.
Just this past weekend.
Last weekend?
Yes,
Wow.
The emergency meeting was held last week to try to address the issue, and there's some things I want to talk about, but they're related to the, isn't it in there? To the resolution, so I'll talk about it then.
well, we can talk about it now and then.
Okay.
We'll get into, that's just acknowledging what we did before.
Okay,
We'll have to vote next time to change anything if we do.
okay,
I was just going to also say that we know that there were folks that went in areas they weren't supposed to, like at River's Edge Bike Park, but since that's a joint.
Yeah, they
They
moved
moved over to the bike park.
well, they,
Not all of them. I
A
mean,
lot of them did though.
A lot of them, sure, but we're,
not 3,500 of them.
No, but I know somebody that took their kids there and they had to yell at people to take their garbage with them because they were trying to leave it and all the cans were full.
There was some
People
down by
from
Rock
out-of-state.
10 too, so I do water testing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
The
Yeah, so there's
there,
other
so there was a
places.
group.
Well,
And they're actually parking at the information center and walking in now
yeah.
because they don't have to pay.
So and that's something that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. So I wasn't very happy that the first parking lot was closed.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we can do. Cause it basically means like, this park over here is closed on the other side of the train tracks. And I do think remember, we put this into place on a Wednesday, okay?
Yeah.
And we put this into place on a Wednesday, and 3 days later, we had, multiple staff there manning this, trying to address this. But I think it's a work in progress, so I'm hoping we can evolve. We also want to evolve by reducing our costs, because right now we're using some constables and they're expensive. So I don't know at what point if we have to formally decide, I guess it's an HR decision, to hire someone to assist with this, so we can have someone that's more affordable, but can be dedicated to this sort of thing. And then, of course, because I think it needs to be not just stopping the cars to get the funds, because because as was noted, there are people that can park elsewhere and walk in. And I don't know how that is, that's, the ordinance highlights that that's sort of the staff of the township that sort of figure out exactly how it gets implemented, right? But I'm happy for us to have that
I
discussion and,
mean, the reality is, someone could go into Delaware Water Gap and then, park by, Oak Street, Waring Road and.
yeah, I mean, they could park anywhere. I mean, I guess the question is how does one, and I don't know what the answer is, but
Yeah.
how can we, get fees for someone that walks in? I mean, it's the same thing at Smithfield Beach, honestly. If you come in at Hialeah, you can walk into the park and not pay. You're still required to pay. But it's harder to enforce.
I think one of the things to lower the cost certainly is the folks that I think we need to continue to use constables only to deter the folks from, like going into the water. I don't know that they're necessary to use for 100% of everything, and not all of them were doing constable stuff, which is good because that keeps costs lower and liability lower. But I think that one of the possibilities is, having seasonal folks to do that, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Before. Julia and I talked with Chris, the Director of Public Works, for those that don't know, to have the gates so we're not running into any of these issues at night. But the biggest thing that we need to solve in the immediate future is figuring out how to jointly patrol Middle Smithfield River's Edge to make sure that it doesn't get full of
Does
folks.
that gate get closed? We had discussed closing all park gates it hasn't been feasible without the staff before, but to close all park gates at dusk and open them up at dawn.
Yeah, as far as Middle Smithfield Township goes, I reached out to them, I believe message, haven't heard back from them yet, but I'm sure. Come tomorrow, we'll be in discussions.
Okay. And then also, did we say dusk and dawn in here? I don't,
That's in the existing.
that's an existing, we have to think about that, because I know a lot of the soccer goes into the night.
Right, well, I think we can rely upon those, stakeholders to do that, because like Little League, they have their,
Lights,
lights, they have the gate, they have stuff like that, so they lock theirs, we could ask the same of the other partners. The other thing I wanted to mention, Constable DiBartolo mentioned specifically that if we were to amend our park ordinance, we can give them the authority to issue citations, particularly on the side of like litter, for trespassing, double parking, blocking someone in, stuff like that. That'll offset the cost as well, depending on the structure of that. So that's something that,
can issue the citation if they're these are already out of towners, the likelihood that they'll pay it, but we can still try,
well, it doesn't cost anything to cite them,
correct?
fortunately.
Wow,
Excuse me, did you ever consult with, I know they have the same problem in Strasburg with the other park?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you consulted with them how they did it? Like, I don't know who they hired on weekends.
Yes.
And how they gave.
well, Stroud Township does it too, and they actually have an honor system box.
Right,
I don't know if they have someone on the weekends there. And right now, we don't have anybody there
they also
Monday.
close parks often.
Yeah, we don't have anybody there Monday to Friday. And I don't think the plan is to hire someone, at least Monday to Thursday, when,
I think they only had it on weekends.
correct. But I mean, my hope is that we do have some sort of honor system, but then what you can do is you have someone that patrols. So then
Right,
if you have 20 cars and you look in your box and no one is paid, then they have to pay or they leave. But it doesn't mean you have to have someone sitting there to collect the funds. That's the value of an honor.
we have to work on the
It's
physical hardware for that too.
Correct. If that's not gonna happen overnight, but that's
Yeah.
the goal of,
Suppose you could fine folks for not paying if they choose not to pay at that time
you
either.
could also find them.
Right,
Right, this is citation.
Yeah, in the heart of Nashville, there's a park called Random Lake. And it's beautiful. At the trailhead, after you park your car, they have a credit card vending machine.
Mhm.
And they require a fee from every user of the trail. It is you put in $1, whatever it is, and it gives you a receipt. And if you're out on the trail, if the constable stops somebody, you have to show your ticket. And if you don't have the ticket, you gotta go buy one. It just required like one constable or a park ranger to be available to, when it's an honor system.
Yeah.
It's only patrolled when they can afford it,
Yeah,
Right,
and it works really well.
I definitely encourage Julia to explore what options.
we did,
are out
I
there.
actually did reach, I know Alex reached out to MA to Park and I reached out to Park Mobile.
Yeah,
So we're gonna have some meetings on that.
there might be ability to utilize the parking apps to do something similar.
Particularly like,
Yeah,
I think at least at Marshall's Falls, the only thing is we just have to figure out a way to make sure that someone who is a resident can go in and then, not pay. Because we're not gonna. If we're gonna install hardware like that, there's no need to have a bunch of people to go enforce that on top of the several $1,000 machine, but it's definitely a thought. It could be as simple as, if you don't have that receipt on your windshield, and I don't know, we mail out stickers or something. I don't know, for residents, it's nothing that we've evaluated long-term, but it's definitely a thought.
I think that's important. I think recommendations are welcome here. We're all trying to, I think, get to the same place as opposed to just complaints about this sucks, why is this happening? Or we know why it's happening, but coming up with some solutions too, so we can try to implement them as quickly as possible.
One of the solutions, which is beyond us, is more beaches, because the national park only has 2 beaches on the Pennsylvania side, Smithfield and Milford. And what we're getting is a huge number of people who are looking for someplace to go, and there is no place to go. And what I would recommend is our chairman, at the end of the season, when we have all the statistics on how many people have come, how much we've made, how many people have turned away, to write a letter to Doyle Sapp, who's the head of the Delaware Watergate National Park, and say, look, here are our figures. You've got your own of when you've had to close Smithfield Beach because it's full.
That happens, yeah.
I think we should look towards Bushkill as a potential beach, because we definitely need more beaches here. And this is a indication of what goes on.
Anyone else? At least going to spend some more time researching all of this and. In 2 weeks, if we have to make changes, we all know that a lot of people said, oh, why not have a higher price? There's no guarantee that we're gonna get, what did you say earlier? When people said double.
No, I mean, you could double it, it doesn't, I mean.
Doesn't
if the-
mean you're
If the
going to-
value, if the point was, I mean, there's been, if you look on Facebook, which I hate to do.
Yeah.
The haters and then people that appreciate it as well, but you can have lots of options, increasing the amount. Doesn't necessarily guarantee we're gonna cover our costs, because of course, supply demand, and instead of having. How many people do we have that came in?
356.
So you might have 100 people that choose to come in, and more people that choose to find ways to skirt around it. So actually raising it too much makes it prohibitive, and people will still find a way. So I actually think a lower number, keeping 3,500 people out from abusing the park. And then we have to keep on looking at ways to address River's Edge and other ways
It's also
around.
better, I think, the per person fee as opposed to per vehicle, because oftentimes people are coming in, I think on Square alone, we had like, what was it? It's like 47 sales on Square, but that was like,
10 cars.
yeah,
Did anyone leave tips?
we did not allow tips. That's right, just take a look at this screen, doesn't matter what you click.
Did you say that was per person or per vehicle?
Per person, that's what we're trying.
Okay, but if you're a resident,
Free.
then.
And we did go with resident of Monroe County, not just Smithfield.
Okay.
That's what well, we got, maybe we can get to that
Did
resolution.
you
in a
have the
second.
number of the people, the residents that went? Any?
I mean, there were definitely a lot of residents, we didn't count, we didn't really take a census on them.
Just curious.
But it was quite a bit, from anecdotes that I heard, people were happy that they were able to enjoy the park in their own area. So. Anyone go?
I went.
Yeah.
There. It worked well. The guys were very polite, professional, and there were some cars there, mostly for the people that were picnicking out of towners. I think maybe I saw one other person walking the trail, which is what I was doing.
Cool. Yeah. Cool, all right, so that'll be that on the park security results. We'll talk about the resolution acknowledging what we did and then. You know, more changes or whatever, give more thoughts at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a work in progress, so, you know, for vested interested parties, if you have suggestions, you know, we welcome them if, you know, to continue to evolve and I don't want to see our parks closed. That's my
Right.
personal view. So ways that we can keep our parks open for people that want to use them. And allow others to use it if they pay, their share. And of course, I mean, for me, a big part of, if you have enough people that come and use it, and we don't want to say it's $500 or you're not allowed at all, it covers the cost for someone to also be there that can then say, hey, you can't go in the water, which residents and non-residents are not supposed to do.
Right.
So it allows us to cover some costs as well for those.
Certainly
people.
have ample signage, we got additional signage.
Oh, yeah, there's new signs. There's now signs in Spanish as well and English.
You don't allow swimming?
No.
No.
It's not allowed in the Broadhead. It's not allowed.
Those signs have been there in Spanish
Those-
too, but they.
Correct.
Anyway.
We added
Wow.
additional ones, there's
Those
also
signs have
one
always,
related
that's always
to.
been. a-
Drinking.
I did think, but I mean, everybody was, but this past weekend.
It doesn't say no fishing. It does say no swimming.
Right, and our folks are smart, so if you say you're going fishing, but you know, they're gonna ask, where is your pole?
She liked it.
You know, cause there were plenty of people that were going fishing and then, you know, they, you know, they didn't have their license, they asked for their license. See a fishing license,
She liked it.
so, you know, interesting stuff. But,
Let's trash.
yeah. I can tell you for sure, there was not 6 loads of trash in a single axle,
Pickup loads.
yeah. Oh, it wasn't even pickup, they were using, the F-150, it was like, yeah, it was huge. All right. Now we have, Robert, you said you had learned some new information on road safety
Yeah.
stuff, so we wanted to.
This goes back about 8 months, I think now, when we became aware of some, let's say, less than safe practices on private roads and our HOAs. And we have 10 HOAs in the township. And over the years, they've grown up as they would. And I became aware that the safety standards, and by that I mean crosswalks, stop signs, speed signs, speed humps and so forth, were all over the place because no one had ever thought to regulate them and no one knew how to regulate. So I propose that we figure out some standard way of regulating what's on those private roads to PennDOT recommendations, township standards. And the block was always this, that we didn't want to do anything that was actually penalizing people. We wanted to encourage them when they did revisions, you know, repaved roads and so forth, to do it the right way. So in a quest to find maybe a solution, I met with someone who was actually an attorney who in Portia down near Philadelphia, who was the past president of the Community Association Institute, and has been involved in HOAs and condo associations for most of his career. He came up with what I thought was an interesting and imaginative solution. He said, look, if the township takes an easement on all of these roads, if it's given to them by the HOA, and it's just an easement which says basically our interest is in promoting safety, said, then you have a stake in the game. And also, because all these roads are considered public roads by PennDOT, since any road that the public uses is a public road. And since you have a stake in it, then you can apply under liquid fuels, which is the amount we get from the state every year reimbursing, hopefully our costs and paving and so forth. You can get it for those roads too. And Ron and I discussed this, John and I discussed this, it seems pretty workable and it doesn't cost us anything, it doesn't entail any liability in our part, but what it would do is say, okay, if you sign up for this and give us an easement, when we get our liquid fuel allotments, if you've got 3 miles of road, we'll put a credit for that in your account when you go to redo crosswalks, put in stop and speed limit signs, put in new speed humps and so forth. You can draw on that money because we have an easement and we have an arrangement. It's not a lot of money. It might be $2,000 or $3,000 a year per HOA, something like that.
How much do we get per mile? Do you remember? Liquid fuels? It's not a lot.
I think it's about 1,000 or less.
We get,
We receive about $330,000 for 54 miles of road.
Yeah, so what does that come out to?
330.
$6,111.
So $6,000, $7,000, $6,500 a mile.
A mile? Well, that's pretty good money. Anyway,
That's money that it's just bonus money from the state, right?
Although to repave, it does cost about $250,000 per mile.
well, I'm not even thinking of this as an incentive for repaving. It's a small incentive, but it's a bigger incentive for all the smaller things that are done. Where at least there's something that they can draw on, and it's an incentive to do it our way, which is to say, make it up to PennDOT regulations and township regulations. And it costs us nothing. And it costs us nothing as far as liability either. John, you and I talked about this, Ron, you and I talked about this.
Hey, Ron, does that sound right to you? That an easement doesn't hold on itself any
Well, it
liability?
depends upon how the easement is written. It's a contract, so it's contract driven by way of what the language is. The issue with this is, will the HOA say, yeah, you can have an easement? Because if they say no, you're gonna have to condemn it if you want them an easement.
Well, no, we wouldn't.
And then you have to pay money, so.
If they
If
say
they
no,
say, here's the easement, here you go, and all we're gonna allow you to do is this, this, and this. You're
And
okay.
then they're
Depends
allowed
upon
to-
the nature of.
They're allowed to, and do you believe that we can request liquid fuels for an easement on a road?
I think we can, but I mean, I don't know what happens in Harrisburg these days, those legislatures change laws like, we change our underwear, so who knows? It might be different in 6 months or a year or whatever, but right now, I think that could probably work.
All
But
right,
I guarantee it working? No, I can't guarantee it working, but it could work.
And we can't guarantee the HOAs will join, but if you want to be in the club, you can join. If not,
Knowing what I know, you can ask Rep. Probst to ask the PennDOT legislative liaison their opinion
Sure.
on this.
By the way,
Then you'll
Tara,
have
Good idea.
a more concrete opinion. That'll be much faster than the contact us footer at PennDOT.gov. So,
by the way, Tara's the one who sent me to Marshall Trainer.
yeah, so ask her to,
Okay.
ask them to ask the legislative liaison, putting for 1 second my Rep. Madden hat on. That's who
Will
we
do.
would contact, and they should be able to get you a good amount of opinion on that.
John, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I think it gives you the opportunity to impose. A condition of getting you money is that you've got to follow PennDOT/township standard.
And the biggest thing is we just have to clarify what our standards are by ordinance, because I know that depending on what you're doing, a public road is, 28 feet, but if we're doing it, it's, 50 feet right away.
Well,
So would we make sure that the same
I don't
standards?
be as concerned about the right of way, and the roads are already built, so it's not even that, but I think it's more to, as Robert alluded, get your signage in order, so you've got safety signs out there.
Yeah.
When you're doing crosswalks, make sure they're painted properly, and if you are gonna install speed tables, make them conform to the recommendations of the FHAA, which is what PennDOT, which all the states adopt, so there's
Right.
uniformity everywhere, and I think that's the big plus.
Cool.
But
I'm
we,
happy to continue to explore it.
and just so you understand, that if we get a new community, a new development project that comes in and they're gonna keep the roads private. Under our current SALDO regulations, they still have to build them to township standards.
Right.
So some of the problems that we have are before that was a requirement, or before we had good standards in the township.
I was gonna say, that wasn't always standard, because there's cases in
We've got-
Valhalla and other
Right, but
places.
they were prior to current,
Salvo, anything built after like
regulations.
2005.
right, not about the right time. But no, I think it's a positive, and I think it can,
It's definitely great, because I mean, we can earmark it to the specific place and just make sure we. What is that, pub 9, Julia? And that pub 9? Is that
That,
cool?
that's one of them, yes.
While we're talking about road safety, and I know we have more things to talk about, and we have some people that want to ask questions, but since it's related, quickly talk about 209. Petrus's,
Sure.
I mean, it's road safety. Have you heard anything from,
I heard two things.
what have you heard?
One, they got somewhere around 150K to complete some urgent tasks. I don't know exactly what those are on 209. We have to get clarification on that.
We're talking about near Smithfield Gateway.
Right.
Correct, gateway
The
project.
second is that I heard through Senator Brown's office that they were quite close to getting approval from the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Bank, the funds to complete the rest of the 209 improvements.
That's good
Which
news.
I think the loan, they were looking for like 3 million or something like that, and they were able to get PennDOT to agree to use, or PIB to agree to use land as collateral. So it would ultimately get done.
Okay.
So that's what I heard, but I did ask Doug for some clarification. We wrote down our August 13th meeting date, so I'm hoping that he can
August 13th,
come
okay.
talk that night. Because he also offered that they have other land development plans for the rest that they're going to submit in the next month or so. So we're gonna want clarification on these, not that we hold the cards, but we can at least lobby PennDOT.
Well, that's my next question is for Ron. What sort of cards do we hold?
Well, there's an improvements agreement that says you can do inspections, that says that if they're not met with proper inspections, they can be sued, they can be asked to have their performance security called in, et cetera. So there are things that can be done, that the initial initiation of that is an inspection. Someone like, say, John or his firm went out to inspect and say, no, that this area or this section is not up to the standards.
I mean, they
Need
will
to be
say,
done, and you can call in the performance.
so I guess for me, the question is, I mean, like, if someone's doing a 2-week, what's the timing? Because they're saying, yeah, it's not done, we're working on it, it's not finished. So I mean, if it was a 2-week project, you wouldn't come in 1 week in and say, oh, this isn't the standard. Obviously, it's not.
Well,
So what's the time frame to allow to say, it's been under construction for too long, you need to finish?
There
it
is no
over"?
time frame in the agreements. It would be up to the township to determine enough is enough, go out and inspect and see.
Well, are those not agreements held with PennDOT though?
Well, again, I'm talking about the township agreement that was entered into with respect to, in fact, I'm saying that this is probably stage 1A1.
Yeah.
And this would be contract 1, which deals with the roadway. This contract 2.
But
of
that's the
that
internal
stage.
roadway.
That's the
not
internal
the
road. I'm
PennDOT.
talking about.
No, I think 209 was, contract 1 was 209, John, or not?
that was part of the improvements, but PennDOT held the security.
Okay,
We don't hold the security for the PennDOT improvement.
okay.
So is there conversations, I mean, hopefully on August 13th, but I don't want to kick this down the can forever.
Right,
Kick this down the can.
I
kick the can.
don't know what it,
I wasn't right.
we're doing.
My-
It's all good.
I'm always screw up my idioms, by the way, so.
It's all good.
I don't know what. Even though PennDOT holds a lot of the cards, in my experience, they're very reluctant to play them sometimes. And I don't know what it would take to get them to call the bond or.
Well, do you think now that they're apparently gonna accept the the land theoretically is.
I think they're-
But they're closer to,
I think from what you're told me that you heard. It sounds to me that if PennDOT is willing to do something like that. They recognize the seriousness of the situation and they're
right, at the minimum. you
Right.
know.
And painted immediately.
right. Or because I've never heard of PennDOT doing that. So if they are in fact considering that. That means that they know they've got to do something to get this moving.
Alright, fair questions.
Pat,
Do you supervisors have the authority to ask PennDOT to come and make a presentation about what they're doing? It seems to me like that the public ought to have a little bit of information about what's happening to that very busy
so
roadway.
yes and no, I mean, we can certainly ask them to talk to us, but PennDOT oversees the project. They're not the contractor, so there's a contractor, it's bidded out, and the developers who pays.
Pay for it.
Not PennDOT. So PennDOT has performance security that if it really looks like it's not going to happen, then PennDOT can yank that and say, this is going to happen now.
It's sort of like a last
So it's
resort.
private contractors that are messing this up.
Well, what I understand is
It's
that
a funding issue.
the funding that DePetris received to do the project was a type of funding that made it so that he had to use PennDOT contractors, what he says. And because he went that route, their costs ended up skyrocketing. And so
Well, interest rates over the course of the last,
all those things.
Yeah.
So, and he keeps getting change orders, so stuff has been slower because of these change orders and they don't like they're in angry with the contractors and, but I just don't know. I mean, we just got an update. It sounds like there's a windfall of money that might come to help
and
finish
if
the
I'm not
project.
mistaken, that the emergency improvements that have been made are kind of along Dairy Queen. And then there's along Music Center Drive, there are some divots that have to be
That's a mess.
taken care of.
It's a mess.
Kind of right in front of Strunk's building, there's a big hole.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you lose the front end of your car, you gotta stay to the left, and then you're kind of over the yellow line.
Yeah, slows you down at least.
I just had, but did any of you guys experience or anybody else that light there? It changes and there's
Yeah.
nobody coming from either way.
So I brought this up in an email, Julia, and Doug said that we have the contract. So I think everyone knows all the lights around here are smart lights, so like you have to go up to the line, otherwise the car doesn't see you. But I think the light is not smart enough.
Right.
Nice,
And it's picking up cars that are going right, so that's what happens. A
yeah,
car's coming right, but they don't have to stop, they come out and then the light changes. So I think it's just a question
I've
that,
seen that too.
so
Yeah.
can we reach out?
free signal service, right?
And while we're on that, something in the last 2 weeks has happened at Buttermilk Falls and 209. And that camera is not aligned anymore.
I agree with you. I've sat there for a long
That's the
time.
green light go thing.
They're all green light goes. I mean, every new light that gets in is a smart light. So like,
If a green light go hasn't been happening.
Yeah, to be clear, yeah,
oh,
nothing has
These are
been,
just the cameras that are on the,
yeah,
The
that
bar
one's
there.
always been a smart light though.
yeah, it's a
I don't know if
smart,
it's green light go or.
Green light go is different.
yeah,
It is.
Green light go syncs them together.
Yes.
Green light go helps them all sync together.
this
So
is
there's-
a smart light.
Yeah, usually at Buttermilk Falls, it's not a problem.
Yeah, but it has been. I've been there going back and forth, going this way.
I turned left out of,
Getting out, waving.
turning left out of Cabana, Cabana Lane, turning left out of there has
Yeah,
been.
but can we look,
absolute-
do we have a contact and they can check to me,
Yes,
I think
They do
something,
regular maintenance, like I saw them there like probably 3 weeks ago,
well,
so.
they probably screwed it up, is what happened.
That one backs up traffic then, because everybody's waiting.
But
Yeah.
that does help us get out of.
That one is-
Yeah, because I'm backed up, so I thought the green light go had been activated because it's like,
No.
oh, now I can get out.
No, not yet,
Okay.
although on that, there might be some changes going, we talked about realignment, but we'll probably get into that in what's that? It's
The
not,
lots, are they PennDOT?
no,
Who are the lights?
well,
Well, that's,
I don't know.
Which lights, sorry,
On 209.
Traffic lights.
Well,
yes, but which signals?
the one by St. Luke's right now, that's the
Oh,
one that I said.
yes,
It
that-
just turns red and there's nothing on either side.
Correct, that's PennDOT, that's a PennDOT light, although we have the signal service, municipalities hold those contracts,
The
so they're the ones
contractor?
that have to, yeah.
We have to maintain.
Can Julia reach out to
Yeah.
them for those two lights?
Yep.
Just to make sure that the cameras are angled properly.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, and I've heard a few people complain about that. I'm sure that's what it is. It's just.
Here's a third person complaining.
Okay.
Right.
On an update on the Gapview Drive thing. I'm currently in touch with PennDOT. Actually, I was back and forth meeting with them just today. And I sent them the photographs that I took of the intersection with the traffic. We're circulating a petition to urgently, to you guys and PennDOT to urgently address the safety issue at Gapview Drive. As you know, I'm going to say it again, traffic on 209 is leaving 209 to drive perpendicularly across Gapview Drive to re-enter into 209 around cars that are trying to turn off 209. They're leaving the road, they're entering Gapview Drive, they're going behind the people waiting at Gapview Drive to turn. So it is a township issue because 209 traffic is driving on Gapview Drive. Whether or not you care to acknowledge that or not, that's your.
Yeah, Fred, look, I'm not gonna let you say that we don't care about that.
I know you care. I know you care.
And we acknowledge that it's a safety issue, but it is not our responsibility. It is something that we care about and want to be helpful with. That's why there's talk about realigning that road according to where those signals are. There's potential development that would
That's not gonna happen.
help do.
That's never gonna happen.
Well,
That's too much-
there is a development now that is looking towards building there and doing that, but there's some questions of buffers and
Yeah,
Needed multimodal grant.
Yeah.
no, I'm putting short term on this because my life is at stake every day. So I'm just looking for proper signage, proper lane markers. And I'm sorry, they're leaving 209, they're driving on Gapview Drive. And it's an illegal turn in a single lane. You can't drive, you can't pass on the right in a single lane intersection ever in this. So it's a township issue because they're driving on township roads, whether or not you care to acknowledge that or not. So anyway,
I don't like that you keep insisting that we're,
It's only because I look out my window and I'm seeing a dually truck screeching on his brakes while I'm sitting on the corner of Gapview Drive. People wanna pass and they're gonna go, and if they don't, they can't get that way, they go behind me on Gapview Drive and then they turn around and they, you know,
Yeah.
it's a mess. Anyway, so I'm on it. I'm gonna be harassing you guys every chance I get. It's not just you, it's PennDOT, so it's just me. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Here's my vote
yeah, well, look,
for harassment.
we appreciate that. All I'm saying is Pennsylvania State Police is the one that enforces moving vehicle violations. So that's exactly what that is. So we can request from them extra, coverage, particularly in that area, we're willing to do that, reach out to PS, we can do that. But the other stuff, if it's an improvement to a state road like 209, PennDOT's gonna have to install it.
Right, I get it.
So we're interested.
The police will tell you that's the most dangerous intersection in the county. That's a quote.
I know a
it's
couple.
not. The one on 33, which is getting redone right now, is the most
I know
dangerous. There's-
folks that have been in accidents right over there,
I
so I.
spoke to a state trooper and he said, this intersection. So anyway, they're aware of it.
Yeah. We'll be in touch as we get more.
Thank you.
Stay in mind.
So, I appreciate that there's not a lot that the township can do about it. I almost got taken out Monday evening on my way to the zoning hearing board.
Sure.
And I understand. I think everybody knows that. Anyway,
I drive that road too.
what else? What else? You get upset that Brett, it sounds like he's saying you don't care. And you say, well, we can call and ask for extra state police. It sounds like you don't really care, because that's not really gonna happen. So has anybody contacted?
Why is that not gonna happen? That has happened in the past.
Well, has anyone from the township contacted
Yes.
PennDOT about?
Our director of public works did. What's that? What
She
about her?
work for, she represents the township,
She's a liaison.
right? Can she put something out there?
As she says, she's got these other big fire, I mean, her primary concern is.
It's on
She lives
eighty
in
and
Jersey
611.
and that's her focus.
Right, but no, our director of public works is our primary person who works directly with PennDOT on all sorts of things, so he's reached out to them. They didn't give him any solutions, so we're gonna ask PSP for increased patrols. I know I mentioned that as a possibility before, but that's the best we can do, at least for enforcing the traffic, because we don't have jurisdiction over that. We can request that, we don't have our own police department, and we'll do it, but don't think that we don't care about it.
Who
It's,
was gonna contact who? A guy was gonna contact PennDOT?
Chris, who's our director of public works, he has contacted them on this issue. And they didn't care. No, I'm not saying they didn't care. I'm not.
Well, you're probably right, they probably.
No, I'm sure they care, but I'm sure they.
In the meantime, here's a recommendation based on experience. If you're waiting for the light at Buttermilk to turn onto 209 and the light turns green, don't go. Look both ways, because I've seen so many people run that light. And that's one of the causes of terrible accidents.
One last comment.
yeah,
In Pennsylvania and on the single lane road, if there's a bicyclist. If there's no side, no shoulder, the bicyclist is the vehicle in the lane.
Correct.
And if a car comes upon a bicyclist, they have to give them 4 feet. Which means the bicyclist owns the lane, because there's no 4 feet.
Correct.
Can't pass in a double yellow.
right,
And I come upon this all the time on Gapview Drive, because I cycle there regularly, and if anywhere anywhere in the state, a bicyclist owns a single lane, and cars do not have. They don't have the right to pass. Bicyclists are just as entitled to the lane as any other vehicle, because we don't have bike paths, we don't have shoulders, so I think that's just an observation.
that's a good thing to know, we've talked with PennDOT about this with regard to. Near like the roundabout, so we can certainly look into. Alright, gonna move on to new business with our consent agenda. Which as. 7 items. In consideration to approve a proposal regarding Marshall's Falls Park mowing with Primrose being the low proposal. Consider the ratification of a separation agreement with Lois Tur, which as a result, it's a personnel matter, so we will not be commenting on that. Consideration to acknowledge the adoption of resolution number 562, establishing fees for out-of-state residents administering park in Marshall Falls Park. That's just acknowledging the action that we took at the last week's meeting. Consideration to ratify the filing of the answer to the petition for Carroll v. Smithfield Township. Consideration to ratify the filing of preliminary injunction request regarding back 9 MX. Consideration to appoint our Director of Public Works as an alternate delegate to the Oak Grove Multi-Municipal Compost Processing Board, so he can vote in the absence of a supervisor. And the consideration to award the materials bid to Eureka Stone Quarry Inc. I believe I have the only proposal. Do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Mr. Loveenheim. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Albert, any questions?
No, I think we discussed everything with resolution 562. When does the back 9 injunction go through if we ratify it right now? Ron?
Ron said,
Again, I'm waiting to hear from the sewage enforcement officer if there's any issue with respect to, I presume, porta johns being used at the track.
Okay,
If they're not supposed to be used at the track,
Then
then
you'll
you'll
add that to the
that part of the injunction.
okay, perfect.
If it doesn't matter, then I can file the injunction literally probably within a week.
well, you have to talk to Scott anyway, so you can.
Right, I
Yeah,
reached
Julia
out,
said she had
Yep.
reached out to him.
I reached out to.
Just haven't heard, that's all.
Okay,
Yeah, we
Okay.
contacted them on the 18th. They asked us for contact information and I returned it later that day. I'll follow up again.
okay,
Great,
Well, why don't we set a deadline? If we don't hear from them by Friday, let's just file anyway.
Well, I'm out of town next week, so it won't happen by Friday, it'll be the week after, the week of August 5th.
Well, the sooner we can get it, I mean, if we can get it tomorrow, we've seen the draft, so it's. Okay. All right, anything else? All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Next is a discussion on draft ordinance number 252, B1 and B2 repeal and bed and breakfast reforms. We had talked about this extensively between joint sessions and individual planning sessions, and our county planning commission gave us their preliminary review. They had informal comments, which if you like, I can read off. It appears that a number of the changes reflect the replacement of the B1 district with the ED district. This is to be encouraged, and all other references to the district replaced by the ED district should also be eliminated. So counts for B2 as well. Bed and breakfasts are to be a use permitted by right in all districts. Typically, there are stricter requirements in principally residential districts, and they would require conditional use or special exception approval. The township is encouraged to consider requiring conditional use approval in the R1 and R2 districts. Another option would be to require the conditional use of approval only for bed and breakfast serving 4 to 6 guests, whereas 3 and under would be permitted by right. The township should consider putting a maximum stay length on bed and breakfast, such as a week. The additional regulations for bed and breakfast are generally acceptable and assist in distinguishing this use from short-term rentals, particularly by having the owner reside at the property. This is to be encouraged. While the definition of bed and breakfast is consistent with county resources, you may consider adding language stating that the owner resides on site. So that is,
I thought that was in there.
I thought that it was pretty clear, but maybe they want it even more clear. I know that
I think
generally,
it says it resides on site or a lot contiguous to the site. So
Right.
I think it's there, but maybe it's just
Maybe
not
not.
read the same way.
right,
When we say on site, as I remember, we were saying that the proprietor or somebody acting as proprietor had to be either on the property or on an adjacent property.
That's what it says. That's what it says under section 6(1)D, like the.
I think the only thing that I read, the only real, because I think it's there.
yeah,
The only real thing is, do you make it a conditional use? We do have it as a permit requirement. I don't know if that was, you do have to have a permit, but
Right.
alternatively it could be conditional in R1 or 2, and they're saying you can have 2 to 3 guests without it being conditioned. I don't know. Have you seen that before?
I have not seen it before, but that's purely just a township. Like or dislike, they can make it 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 5,
Just three,
whatever.
3 and under would be permitted,
Whatever you
right?
would want
So
to do.
weird.
we chose 6 by right in
I
the
think that,
draft here. I don't know that
think
there's a distinguishable difference between,
Putting the amount of time is important.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
missing.
for sure.
yes, but I think 6 is reasonable. That's what it's always been.
No, they're
Well,
suggesting
that's
3.
your choice, the planning commission is saying, you may want to say, okay. Rather than make 6 permitted, anything from 4, 5, or 6 is conditional use, but 3 or less is permitted.
This is splitting hairs.
Yeah.
You know, if a guy wants to be in business with a bed and breakfast, he should be able to have 6 rooms, up to 6 rooms. You know,
Right, I mean,
6 guests, actually, not
6 guests, okay. 6
Yeah.
guests.
so that's realistically like,
3 rooms.
yeah. I mean, it's fairly basic. This is the shortest of the ordinances that we reviewed in joint session. Because we're not talking about the hotels or anything yet, since that was a little bit more complex.
Just note on section 1
Yeah,
of the ordinance, principal should be PAL, not PLE. Principal,
Misspelled.
it's a misspelling, that's all.
Well, I definitely think we should add the 2 weeks.
2 weeks max.
Reasonable.
I mean, the reality is, once it's 30 days, it's just, and you do it anyway.
Short-term rental.
No.
You know.
A short-term rent is under 30 days. So if you're 31 days, you're just a tenant. So you're basically saying you can't rent it out from, if you're gonna be there for 14 or 15 to 30
Right.
days. I think it's trying to avoid the long-term stay
Right,
thing. which is,
We don't even have any definition of long-term stay, do we? I don't think we do under other words.
I don't know how you even enforce it, because if you wanna stay in a hotel forever,
Well, let's say 30 days. I mean, it's reasonable. Everything should be up to 30 days. I mean,
I mean, then you
what are
don't,
we protecting ourselves against? Guy wants to be there for 30 days. I know, in the case of, Stony Brook, Pete Ferguson, they've had guests there that were working in the area, they've been there for a month or more. So I think a month is reasonable.
No. We can sit on that because we're not ready to advertise it yet either. I mean. Doesn't really bother me. I mean, everything else, the other comments are like, yes, this is good. You know,
Since we've outlawed, Airbnb type short-term rentals, I think we should do everything to encourage bed and breakfast, because at least they're managed. There's somebody there who's managing, their traditional tourist use, and we're a tourist area.
I think we should add the 2 week, or you saying, well, I don't know. I don't know.
can we see what other municipalities in the counties do? I don't, we just have to pick something.
But if we're adding something, why be arbitrary? If we say 30 days, then it's lines up with short-term rentals. And in a sense, it could be a short-term rental with somebody managing it and somebody there. And the biggest problem, and the reason we outlawed Airbnb type short-term rentals, is because they weren't managed. There was nobody there. And the complaints we were getting were about traffic, parking, noise, etc. And they were all absentee owners. This is something very different. And I think in the days when we did have Airbnb, I'm sorry, bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
There were no complaints, and we had 2 of them. Now we have essentially none.
Alright, well, one last,
And the board is okay with these being permitted in any district? Because that's.
this was the intention.
Okay.
The only question
But permitted, what it was supposed to be, you have to get a permit.
yes, you did,
Yeah, you got a permit, but it's still permitted by right in any district.
permits required,
And there's certain things required in the permit though.
right?
And that permit only lasts a year, right?
Well, it has to be
I don't see
renewed
any of
every-
that in this ordinance.
I thought that's what we had talked about. but-
Anywhere every
I
year.
know we talked about the permit, but that can be set by
I think it's.
because that goes in the fee schedule.
And if it's a permit, I think the reasons we would need a permit are things like, well, do the fire alarms work? Are there exits for handicapped people and so forth? Other than that, as long as it's running well. There's nothing for us really. to
Requires that
expect.
they are compliant with the hotel excise tax and.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatnot.
Yeah, it guarantees that the taxes get collected.
Right. The only,
I mean, I guess my feeling is make it reasonable, don't make anything arbitrary in it. Hopefully it'll work out well.
Julia, so this was Eric Koopman said this on July 3rd. And it says, could you please give me a call when convenient? I have a couple of questions. Did anything else lead to additional feedback?
I've called him twice. I haven't heard back from him yet.
They must not be that serious.
Yeah, they're very busy.
Yeah,
But the one point of clarification I did want to make, for the bed and breakfast, it says they shall be limited to 6 guest rooms, not 6 guests.
6 guests.
So just be cognizant of that.
I think we should get on with this, enough. Let's go.
you probably should state the length of the permit in section 6, subsection 1A. For a year, or it shall be renewed on an annual basis. Christine?
Is there anything in there that would allow a homeowner to run a sober house under the guise of a B&B?
I think to be qualified as this, well, I guess it depends on how they're running it. I don't know.
It allows, if you live basically allows if you have extra rooms in your house. The idea is, or if you have a house next door to your house, you can have guests.
But you must have someone on the premises or on.
Someone has to be
Premise
on
next
the
door.
premises, someone has to be there.
Define someone, a manager?
We
or
said
an
owner.
I would think
The owner.
proprietor or, I mean, the owner might designate somebody, but it's gotta be somebody who acts as proprietor.
It can't, well, it can't operate a business if that's what you're referring to is a business. Is there another service? Right? I mean, that's what I would
Well,
argue.
Typically, sober houses are places that have a, run a little bit like a hostel. House rules, curfews, and there's typically someone in the home to provide support for.
How long are people there?
I don't know.
Oh, they're
I've
usually
never-
there, I mean.
I don't know, I've never been in a sober.
No, I
house.
know, I'm just saying, like,
I think they can check themselves out, but I think that there's one
Is
right by
there
my
a
job.
loophole that someone could find where, well, yes, I own this house and I have my manager who lives there and the people who are staying there just happen to be recent graduates of our drug rehab.
I think you would need a permit.
I think you need, I
Is that the
think,
business?
it sounds like it's a
Permit so
business.
that you're, just to be sure that your smoke alarms work. But-
No.
No, I
no,
mean, that's
that's a
with
business.
anything. This
Sounds
is-
like that's a.
This is like a change of use, because that's not a use as a single family dwelling. You would have to get,
From my understanding, the people who are living in the sober house simply pay rent. It's not a,
But it's not long-term, so rent is, I mean, someone could do that right now in a residential zone. They could rent their house next door to a group of 6 people, right? They can do that right now, if it's for longer than 30 days.
right.
I guess that's what
you can ask, Eric. who-
Can't, just because someone has a drug problem, you can't keep them from renting your house,
Right.
right?
But they would owe hotel motel tax. If they were.
If they're a bed and breakfast.
Right, yeah, sober house certainly wouldn't have that registration.
I worked at a halfway house in Tennessee and it's a business.
Yeah, I mean, I agree it's a business. She's trying to say, is there a way that they might be able to, with this, get around that as a loophole?
We need a license for that, right?
Yeah, you need a license, that's the whole thing.
And proof that they have a license, we prove they're running a business
Sir, can I
that
have your name, please?
is.
I'm sorry, you're not familiar to me. May I have your name?
Laidler,
Yes,
Peter James Laidler, Laidler.
thank you, sir.
So you need, I mean, again, that would be one of those things where Ken would cite and then they can say, this is, you're not running a bed and breakfast,
Procedure.
as it is right now, if you were to do the same.
It's a bed and bar, just.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Stroudsburg Borough has recently dealt with someone doing it unpermitted, so I can ask them. But I don't think that this would allow, but we'll ask Eric Krugman, but I think we can fill in the rest, the rest is just ministerial changes.
Well, I mean, I recommend we add the 30-day max
Yeah,
and then move it along.
I
all right,
concur.
well, I'm good with 30-day max, the 1 year
Six
permit,
guest room max, right?
yeah,
Not 6 people, 6 guest room max.
right, that's in
And
the ground, yeah.
so
B1 and B2 component that's on the agenda.
That's basically our ordinances have all these references to B1 and B2. And this is why we started here actually, is because bed and breakfast has a bunch of references to them. And they don't exist anymore. They're ED. So we actually started there and we'd already talked about the definition of bed and breakfast. So we're like, let's do it together.
Yeah.
Got it.
People still submit land development plans to us showing.
I mean, in an ideal world, you're gonna start to see a bunch of these, because we had that committee that you were attending. There was a bunch of definitions that need to be updated, so this is the first one. Then,
Next will probably be motel, hotel.
well, because inn and hotel and resort and motel, you know, it's unclear.
Right,
They're a little muddy,
Mhm.
so we want to just make sure we all agree that they are what they are.
that'll be us talking about that, because planning commission did not want another joint session on that.
I know.
So that'll probably be in the next few weeks.
All right.
All right, so I'm good with that, and then we can prep the advertisement then.
Does it have to go back to these guys? If it changes, it has to go back then.
So we didn't do any official advertising. This just went out informally.
Yeah.
So I will make these changes and it's up to you guys now. If you want to do one more round of informal, send it to the planning commission, see what they think. Or if you want these changes made.
They already approved sending this here. I would rather
Get it
just
done.
prep the ad and send them, say your 30 days start now and adopt this by late August.
So then Ron and I will work together to make sure that is ready and we'll get it on the next feasible agenda, so.
All right.
One more question
Yeah.
about this, if you don't mind.
Yep, go ahead. Public comments next anyway.
So. I apologize, this is a question I've asked before, and I still don't really understand the answer. On draft ordinances, is the public entitled to see a copy of the draft? Like tonight's meeting. Are we allowed to have a copy of this to read through it and follow along while you guys are there
Already
talking
on
about number 6 and number 8?
So
Yes,
I'm
you're
gonna-
gonna, can you or not?
So it's kind of a complicated answer. At short, if we wanted to, we could withhold this. We choose not to because we think it's important. The more eyes that we can see on this, the better. So we don't, which is
But we have
why
eyes on it,
Which
which
is-
except yours.
it's on the website.
I looked on the website today for it, what was it?
It's under open time for projects.
Oh, the Township project, I looked there.
Did I,
Maybe I missed it. Is it titled something different or was I just being spacing?
let me check. I might have. No, it's right there at the bottom, zoning revisions dash B1, B2 and BB. It's very
I did
possible.
miss it. I apologize.
That's okay.
Totally apologize.
Always make sure, I try and update the website, as quick as I can, and I will be honest with you, I put it up this morning. I have been.
So maybe it wasn't there
So it
when
might have been my
I looked
fault.
this morning, so maybe I missed you.
Yeah.
We did discuss it in public forum before it was drafted. I mean,
The other side of that too, though, is if your browser, if you allow cookies on your browser, it will preload old versions of our website.
Right.
So if you have the opportunity to do so, I always use private windows to force my browser to upload the most present version of a website. So, you don't miss anything as I'm hitting the update button.
And there's, I mean, I
I
think,
think I was looking before, because I was looking like 7:05.
and I think at this point now it makes sense, because we've all said, we like this, we're gonna send it formally to Monroe Planning Commission. I personally think now is a good time to post it, whereas like. I'm working on the signage ordinance with a committee. We've been working every week, every Monday or Tuesday, we get together for an hour and edit a different section. It probably would not be appropriate to share that, because it's like redlined everywhere and thoughts and comments. It's like too working.
It's too raw.
It's too raw. And honestly, there's stuff we haven't even looked at. So you start getting comments, how come this is there? It's like, we haven't looked at that section yet,
Understand.
So I think that, but I agree at this stage, now that we've said, yeah, we're pretty much, add this little change that. And it sounds like it is out there, so.
Okay. Right. Now, yeah, thank you.
yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff on there that folks could look
Yeah.
at too.
And of course, for ordinances, obviously, before they're enacted, they're public.
Right.
Right.
So sometimes when we only see it like, the day of the hearing, it's not really.
Yeah, and ideally, we have if we think there's community members that are concerned about it, we ideally do want to hear about it before.
Sure. Sure.
And when there's gonna be votes on these things, we do make sure, I mean, one, they're available anyway, if it's a zoning ordinance, like a map change or something, that's 30 days, if it's non-zoning related, then it's, as, could be as little as 7, we always shoot for 2 weeks. On them.
What could be as little as 7?
The public review period where we're required to post it, we generally get our stuff up there before then,
Okay.
so.
And so that's the law, that you must post it within 7 days of the hearing.
There is
For
no
public
law
review.
about what we must post on our website. We choose to do that.
Be public.
But physically, yes, we do have that available, and when something is advertised, the legalese says that it must be available here, so we have a copy.
Christine,
Yes.
PSATS, the Pennsylvania State
Yeah.
Association of Township Supervisors, provides a document called the 2024 advertising requirements. And those demonstrate what advertising requirements we're held to, depending on what the situation is. That might be a really helpful document for you to take a look at, so you can just understand the context. and what-
Maybe we'll even upload
I
that.
think I will, yeah. It's confusing, very confusing.
That's why there's been mishaps in the past. So,
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
yeah, of course. So then I'll move to public comment. Okay, you were first.
Okay, great. So I'm not really a public speaker, so I have to imagine you all being naked will make it feel better.
It's all good.
Now we're picturing you naked. Oh, my God.
Okay, so I'm here about the zoning, which affects where I live, which is Alexander Loop and Sarah Way. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
It's just, I'm in the right place.
And
You're talking about.
taxpaying concerned residents of Smithfield Township. My name is Peter Laidler from Sarah Way. I've lived in Smithfield Township from when I built my house in 98, 26 years ago. I'm only saying that because somebody didn't think I'd been here that long. Can't help the accident. I'm here because it came to my attention that the adjacent patch of land to our property and the closely knit neighborhood where we all reside, there's been a proposal to change the zoning on this patch of land, which would give access and permission to build a factory or God knows what else, perhaps a garbage disposal or sewer or whatever else kind of factory it might be. I mean, if I'm wrong here, let me know, because I don't know whether it's gone through or whether it's just a proposal. So anything I say, this is just
Yeah.
information that I have received. There's always been a buffer zone between the airport and the industrial landscape that's there. And I really believe it should remain as a buffer zone, in my humble opinion. The proposal does not sit well with me or the closely knit community that is confronted, confronted with this proposal. Now then, I was led to believe that this action to be referred to would be spot zoning. Is that correct? You know, where they, rather than them having a whole, idea and other proposals going on. So it's not called spot zoning? Does it not come under that heading? That's what I was led to
The
believe.
Monroe County Planning Commission made a reference that one might be able to consider this planning, spot zoning,
Okay,
but
yes.
also said,
Yeah.
they referenced that, but then there's another, but it might
Explains
also
why it
not
was
be.
not.
Okay.
Because
so-
it's a,
all right.
I think their words, their words were, this holds certain elements of spot zoning,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay,
because it's owned by one person, that's why.
okay. Okay, so we're not sure, but you think it's not under spot zoning. In any case, it should have been turned over perhaps to the zoning board for them to have a look at and reference it and get opinion on it, rather than it being decided here.
It actually went to planning commission and the environmental agency.
Okay,
Okay. And then they both made recommendations that were counter to each other.
The Board of Supervisors has jurisdiction over all map changes.
Wasn't it also posted? Is it been
Yeah.
posted?
okay, so has it actually gone through?
Yes,
It did go through? I can't
This
even
is,
remember.
this is at our last meeting in early July.
Okay, so why weren't we informed? Big question here. We were told, I was told by somebody, I'm not gonna mention the name, but we were supposed to be informed as residents on that area where this was proposed. Nobody came to let us know, told us anything about it. It just got done. And now anything can be built there, factory, warehouse.
That's not necessarily true. It is now in that M1 zone. But that doesn't require the construction of any of those things.
Okay.
We have the ability to require screening, which is like that buffer zone type of thing that you're talking
Well,
about.
one of the reasons why this was approved by this group, having discussed it and hearing arguments, was there's a very significant wetlands buffer.
Well, this is what I'd like to get into here. So I'd like to go on here. Not only will it affect the residents, it will affect detrimentally the aquatic life would be in peril. Okay, this land is part of the wetlands scape. The water plate is right under that particular area and feeds into and from the wetlands. So I mean, you dig a foot down, you're gonna get water coming up.
So it is,
I mean, that's just
a lot
how
of
it
it
is.
is in fact wetlands and.
It probably all is, even where our houses were built. I mean, there are houses that continually have.
Where is your house?
It's Sarah Way, Alexander Loop, behind the church. It was built by LTS. None of you have even been out there to have a look at the location. I'm surprised.
No, that's not
Actually,
true.
I've.
Okay, I'm only saying.
I go to that church.
You go to that church. All right. So do you know the housing area behind there, Alexander Loop and Sarah
I
Way?
do.
So we're
I
right
have
on the
friends that live
wetlands.
around. Yeah.
Okay, now what I'm saying is perhaps the houses shouldn't be built there, but they are there now. There is a lot of houses at the back and different areas where the sump pump is continually on. And there's others that aren't because of the stone and because.
So I just want,
So,
I know you weren't at the hearing where we discussed this, but one of the things that was discussed in detail,
Yes,
just for you. If there's wetlands, it doesn't matter if it's M1, R1, you can't build on it. And that was a big part of why we decided, we felt there was a huge portion of this land that is unbuildable. And therefore, so that was,
Well, what about the fact that, I'm not sure how they designate what is wetlands. I know that it breaches and a lot of the land that's sort of like on the verge, on the.
yeah, so there's a 75. We just updated this to be more direct.
Do you have a map on that? And also the water underground, I'm trying to get that.
What's the buffer on wetlands? Is it 75?
150 from the
No,
street.
no, we just redid this.
Right.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
you built that information.
Was,
I thought it was.
100 feet.
75 and 40%.
Yeah, it's 75 forward, which means you
Okay.
can't even disturb land. And
And
to
I
your-
agree
to your
Well,
question,
another point is this, and I'm listening intently, I really am. I'm
No, I
trying to
know.
interrupt. But, obviously the wetlands has all kinds of aquatic life. And we have box turtles, which are kind of rare.
Which is
There's a problem.
and box turtles can prevent any
Endangered
development.
species.
Correct.
So what they do is they come out of the wetlands and they come onto our property and lay their eggs. So with that being said, if they build something there, that's gonna really affect
So
the
it does
turtles
not
and
get,
all the other life, the frogs and the toads that we have. If you come over there at night, you'll hear it sounds like you're in Jamaica with tree frogs all over the place. I'm sorry.
it's
You
okay.
were saying.
I was gonna say, that's good information for you to have because box turtles can, as our engineer will tell you,
There is
stop development from happening regardless of what zone.
Right, and the
It's-
fact that it's so close to where we are, I mean, and there's another point that I'd like to bring up later, but I did just like to get through this.
Yeah, go.
But this is their home, right? It's an ecosystem that is teeming with life and must be preserved at all costs, I believe. And I'm sure everybody does, and I'm sure there's legal action that can be taken. If this passes, it could happen right on your doorstep. Please don't say the president. Incidentally, I'd like to talk about Mountain Manor Golf Course, where we have a motorbike club that regularly goes in there, but particularly on weekends. And I believe, and on Sundays, we can get no rest, no peace at all. I mean, the exhaust pipes are blasting. And actually, in that area, there's houses, and I don't know how they're able to even talk to each other. But where we are, we're getting a lot.
We just approved an injunction, which is us. We're on the same, we've been on the same side of this one.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, because I had heard that they didn't have the zoning for it, right?
correct.
Correct, right? So how come that nobody is giving them a ticket or?
They got many
Pulling
tickets,
up
they
everything.
appealed, there was a case, court
Okay.
got zoning hearing case here, they lost.
But shouldn't the owner's presumably getting paid if they're still on his land? Shouldn't he be responsible for the fact that they're there?
Well, certainly.
Realistically,
to-
right? I mean, they're not just gonna be there on their own merit. They're gonna be paying this land.
So ultimately, when there's a dispute between us and the landowners, it's gonna go to court, and which is why we have a lawyer here.
Okay, it's nice hearing your opinion, because I didn't realize that you were kind of involved in, everything else, that wherever.
Yeah, so.
So I'll let you, my last thing,
Go ahead.
Chair.
That's fine.
that was the zoning hearing board, by the way. You talked about this, that case went before the zoning hearing board,
Okay.
not before us, because it was a zoning dispute. In that our zoning officer issued a citation, they disagreed with it, goes for the zoning hearing board, but they did lose in that case. And now that they've lost, we issued an injunction saying, stop.
Interesting, thank you, I'm really pleased I came tonight.
Okay.
The other thing is, right, which we just got today, the parcels of land is 1 and 2, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Which are quite big, the parcel 2 is 17.36 acres, parcel 1, we know how much they paid for it here too, they paid $5,000 for that
Big money.
land, isn't that interesting? Yeah, and 4,000 for the other, I believe, parcel 1, which is right here, this is where we are, and this is where I think the proposed plans are.
I don't know if we're talking about the same land, actually.
Next to the airport,
Yeah.
Road,
Across
across from
road.
Airport
Yeah.
Road.
on that,
Yeah.
on the
Yeah, you wanna-
east side of the river.
There you go.
Yeah.
Come over here, everyone's okay.
Yeah, you're okay.
You never know.
I don't know.
Can you
All right, so listen, you
Yeah.
guys seem to know what's
Because-
going on. Can we be informed every step of the way by either getting in touch with you? Or who should we speak to about what's
Look at it
happening
on-
with
on
this?
GIS to make it easier.
You have to come to the meetings.
Right, that is. But this is airstrip. road. So,
It's not already.
Yes.
All right, so that's about it. Thank you all, and may we all put our best foot forward and feel the wind at our backs. So, unity and
You don't have to go. You don't have to go.
yeah. You go.
No, you don't have to go. I'm just saying, you're right. It's this piece right here.
Right,
Oh, no, it's this piece.
No.
no, it is this piece.
He owns this piece.
Now,
I
is
think
it,
the
by the
little
way, is it
piece up
Stretch
there.
that owns that, the former airport owner? Was it Bob? Stretch? It
Yes.
is Bob Stretch. It's all that.
It's all his-
It's just this piece.
No, it's this. piece.
Because he owns,
And he's very intimidating.
He owns all of this, okay?
I know that, but what's the land that got developed?
Well,
it is this shape here. So this part is already, they weren't proposing, remember we wanted the subdivision? Because this is R1 here, but this is really what would be M2, or sorry, M1.
That's
And
correct. That one,
so the
right.
whole parcel will be that, but it won't because of the wetland, because that's basically.
That's what I was trying to
This
So
say.
one
has
here.
all this been deemed,
This is already M1. It was this
Okay.
one that was switched to
This
M1
little-
because this was already M1.
okay,
little
But I
tiny-
will say, our whole feeling was none of this can be developed. The whole, I believe the reason he wanted to do is because he wants to do something rich.
okay, because we have problems with it, when he owned the airport. Yeah, you guys might know this story. He, say that's land. Yeah, for many years. It's like that.
Oh, my God, I remember.
So he wanted to have. I remember, that's the only meeting I've been to since then.
So,
And I said, well, what do we do? Put red flags and let us know if there's a really big final.
so what I'll tell you, so I want to tell you, and I want to make sure everybody else hears though. Important though, if this is a concern,
I'm gonna go sit down.
any land developments would have to go through land development. And that's where bog turtles come into play.
That's outside agency approvals when there's,
So if there's a belief, if you're next door and you really don't want development there, make sure you come to any land development meetings around this property where, yeah, make sure you come, keep an eye on the meetings to see if,
I'm gonna be here every one.
Yeah, great. No. by the way, we are required to post on immediate adjacent properties, right?
You make the ways happen.
For land development?
no, when,
No?
we will contact you, and if you'd like, you can come give your email address and we will give you. A monthly
land development is
email, but
planned.
also about this.
That's also when you can bring up these things, and if there is deemed that there should be an assessment of bog turtles,
One
then.
other thing, I would assume we'd have to do a lot of technical stuff and engineering to find out exactly what the land would hold and all that stuff too, to make sure it's not near the wetlands. So there's a lot of stuff would have to be in preparation before they can even
Correct.
think about building or putting land.
And any land development has to also,
Okay, well, we don't want it there. You hear that, guys? We do not want it there.
any land development also has to
Destroy our
have,
neighborhood. We've been there for like 26 years. We've paid a lot of money. We spent so much money on the land. We have a lot of people that come over and do things.
Well, we definitely share that feeling, so we're,
I mean, there's a ton of.
Margaret, we share that feeling. The problem is-
Industrial, but not like on the
The
doorstep.
problem is,
Nice communities
is
like
when
ours.
you have discretion to grant that change. You still have to deal with the land development process. No one wants a warehouse built on that parcel next to all those folks, and you're not actually able to anyway.
Look out.
We certainly will, and look. Part of the reason that things are very difficult for any type of development on that parcel even. Or that you need outside agency approvals before we can even grant preliminary or final approval.
I'm sorry.
So the conservation district would have to give approval. They might even need an NPDES permit, right?
if they disturb more than an acre, they have to
Yeah, so they're, I don't see what they would actually do there, but they're not going to do it without a lot of conditions, a lot of money,
Okay.
and it's all on them.
Incidentally, they were also riding motorbikes there too, in parts. So we'll be getting a lot of noise in the weekends.
Well, that we can look into more readily.
Appreciate that.
Also
Excellent.
consider that.
It's very good, public surprise.
I got you right after Christine, she had her hand up,
You guys are.
but I got you.
All right,
Peter James Laidler.
So, Mr. Laidler.
Yes.
Made mention of the fact that the property owners in the neighborhood were not notified of the change in designation. Were they, are you? Who are the property owners that share a border with the property?
Well, we're all basically sharing.
Were those people notified? Are there people, I'm not familiar with the
Jason,
area myself, but the adjacent parcel,
Zoning map.
again, was the affected parcel.
that's
Only the affected parcels posted.
I think for
Was
zoning,
that Peter, where
the
the-
zoning depends on land zone, and I have emails that
Signs
say it has to be done. Along with posting the property.
Right.
Except
I was
the-
not able to be that meeting at the
So I
27th,
know.
but you wanted to still proceed.
But we
so-
had,
well, let's check if it was done. So it has to be immediately adjacent, but I don't know. We'll
But
look,
the
we'll look to
parcel- the
confirm.
parcel itself needs to be posted
yes,
though.
yes, it does, and it was.
And Peter's saying that it was not.
None of the neighbors that are directly on the border of what would be happening as regards factories or whatever, or zoning, knew anything about it at all.
And Mr. Wilkins had a
don't
history
think-
of not posting parcels properly.
Well, we'll look into
I wouldn't call one thing a history matter. I mean, look,
There's more than one history. There's more than.
sure, but look, all I'm saying is. We are doing our level best to make sure that stuff is in accordance with the law.
Can you say to me one thing, why was it passed? Why did you guys vote on passing, putting a factory there?
That we
Even though you
did,
say you've got good intentions.
Didn't vote for the factory there, but
Because
it's
it
changed,
was a wet,
so.
why was it passed?
it's the change in zoning does not have to do with a specific use. So we didn't vote to allow a factory there. Someone would have to come in with a land development plan in order to construct almost anything other than, well, we can't build a single family dwelling there, so
It could be
anything,
sewage, it could be waste disposal,
no,
it could be boxing factory or
No.
printing factory.
no, there's a list of specific uses that are permitted on that parcel.
But what would come under that heading of the zoning?
It's everything industrial, but I mean, again,
And what about noise? What about noise and all that stuff too? I mean, it's just, and we've got there's a lot of things.
so it is.
There's a lot of things that you guys should take into consideration.
Wait,
before
okay,
pass
thank
that.
you.
And
I gotta
And I mean that, and I appreciate you know,
I gotta
giving
comment.
your advice.
This,
But there's a lot more things that you should have got into.
okay, if you don't wanna hear from me, you don't have to hear from me then. We can
No,
go
I
on.
do want to hear. from
No,
you.
you're interrupting me.
Order, like just a little hot.
I know, I understand. I wish you had been here at that meeting, and so I wanna find out if we posted, because if we didn't, we have to do something about that.
Too late now.
Not
We all know
necessarily,
about it now.
not necessarily. Because we are supposed to post immediately adjacent, properties.
Okay.
Because if we didn't, then we didn't do our
Are
job
you gonna
properly.
resign now for not doing your job?
Sorry.
He's just sarcastic.
It's all right, it's fine, I don't think it's sure.
Stirring it up a little bit.
But not posting the property properly gives the applicant a deemed approval. Is that not correct, Ron?
No,
No, I don't think so.
How does that work?
the property has to be posted in conspicuous places so that people in the area know what is occurring.
Uh-huh.
This was a zoning map change so that real property located within the zone change, those property owners have to be given notice 30 days before the hearing, so they can come to the hearing and complain if that's what they want to
Well,
do.
that's the problem.
And the advertisement was also in the newspaper once a week for 2 successive weeks, saying that there would be a hearing held on the 27th or 24th, whatever, advising people to come to the hearing if that's what they want to do. So those all have to be done. If they are not done, an argument could be made that perhaps the ordinance is not properly
No.
passed.
Chapter 27, section 901, subsection 2 says, before voting on the enactment of an amendment, the Board of Supervisors shall hold a public hearing thereon pursuant to public notice. In addition, if the proposed amendment involves a zoning map change, Notice of said public hearing shall be conspicuously posted by the township at points deemed sufficient to the township along the perimeter of the tract to notify potentially interested citizens. The affected tract or area shall be posted at least 1 week prior to the date of the hearing. That was completed.
So.
You're not required to
he
post
said
every
that
single.
wasn't.
You might not have seen it.
No, it was not, sir. Well, another resident in the area.
On the border.
On
of
the
that
border.
property.
Wait, sir, can I have your name, please?
What is my name?
Is anyone that speaks at the
Anyone
public
speaks
meeting,
in
take their
public.
name.
Yeah, I know all of the other people that speak, you guys are new.
Very quick, all right, I'm gonna come out to you.
And your last name, sir?
I'm here, family home.
Thank you.
To answer the gentleman's question, why was it changed? Was it not simply because the landowner wanted to consolidate his property? And
He made a request and it was deemed by this board that it was an appropriate change.
Oh.
And it was recommended by a planning commission to move forward with it. If you look at the area, if you look at M1, if you look at the fact that we have almost no developable M1 because, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but almost all of airport is all wetlands. That's why Black Buffalo didn't go forward. That's why, and there is a value, dare I say, a requirement to have developable M1 in your township. That's why I voted yes for it. I'll tell you that. Because I think M1 is important in our community and it has to be somewhere. And this particular property is already.
Seriously, how would you like it on your doorstep?
There hasn't been anything
And how can you
proposed.
possibly deem it that code if you haven't checked out the land? You're telling me that you know that there's wetlands and other things couldn't be built. So how could you possibly put something forward that you haven't done tests for to be able to?
We're not required,
Constituents.
the burden rests on the landowner
I hear you.
when they make a land development application to do that. The zone itself does not have anything to do with that.
Right.
The requirements around what you can and can't do doesn't change. Oh, I mean, some of them do, but as it relates to this construction and wetlands, that doesn't change.
Okay, so let's try not to.
And also, as a point of information, we recently changed and tightened the definition of wetlands. Because of this property around here, the airport, because we didn't want any kind of development on there that was inconsistent with what the wetlands would allow. And so it's much tighter now than it was 3 months ago, whatever it was.
So if we'd been in the meeting, do you think that you might have not gone through with it? And we've been telling you the challenges and the problems that exist because of the noise factor, because of the fact that it's imposing their noise and everything else, roads and all that stuff. So
Unfortunately, everything
could have been gone into, and I'm sorry, you didn't really go into detail, and I think you should have.
Unfortunately, you just don't understand the process.
I can't talk to this house.
Let's talk too, you know, you talk and we talk.
Every time-
Conversation is two people interrupting.
Right, but
That is conversation.
right, but these meetings are not Socratic method.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's dictatorship, is it? Okay.
Can I just say something
Go
about
ahead,
that?
Tammy.
Okay, so here's the process. You complained about the back nine.
I pointed out, I'm not complaining, I didn't want to have this.
Well, I did complain,
Okay,
and I went through the process.
I'm with you.
Okay, I had to come up here. I went to every freaking meeting. I went out and I did a petition. They are in our backyard. We can hear them horribly. I had to get lawyers. We went through the procedure. They did put it in the paper, which they are telling you that before a
I
hearing,
didn't say it was posted.
that please listen to me, because I'm helping you, okay?
Okay.
They did put it in the paper, which they're required to by law, that the hearing was going to be there. So if you get the newspaper, you will see what's going on. They are telling you that they did put it in the newspaper about this property. The one big thing I have, they were all supposed to put it on the property line, and I understand you. When they put it on back nine, that sign was this big. And I thought, who is gonna ride by and see that there's a hearing there? I don't agree with the little signs you put up,
I mean,
You know,
it was practical.
but you did do what you were supposed to do.
Please.
And I'm pretty sure you might have done that. I know that was in the papers. So I'm just telling you to It's a procedure you have to go through. It sucks. It sucks. I've been doing this since September
So
and I'm
what's the name
still
of the law?
fighting it.
It's the name of your law.
Of my lawyer,
Okay.
I'm just telling you.
Sure, you have to.
I know, I've been to every meeting, I've tried to pass everything, and I'm still fighting it.
So it makes
So
no difference,
that's
coming to
what
the
you
meeting
have
makes
to
no
do.
difference.
Yes.
Telling me makes no
But
difference.
but I'm telling you, you can't make enemies
Yeah,
of these
yeah.
people, because these people are gonna help you in the long run. Yes, you have to hold them, you have to hold their feet to the fire, because my next thing is.
Well, I
I'm
think
gonna
they're very
hold their
informed, I
feet
think
to
they're
the
very
fire
smart, I
right
think they're
now.
very intelligent, I think we're a good set of people.
But I'm saying
work
they're
together.
trying to help you, so
I hear
don't
you.
attack them.
Well, you know what,
And you
Okay.
I'm not
understand
really
the
attacking them, I mean.
Okay,
I'm-
okay.
Excuse me, and I'm a little.
Excuse me,
You had your conversations.
yeah, you can have a conversation after we're done with the meeting, and I'm happy to stay and talk with you after as well, by the way.
I just,
Can
Thank
I
you very
just
much, I
comment?
appreciate it.
Yes, you
I
can.
appreciate it.
Here's I'm holding their feet to the fire. You passed a noise ordinance.
Yes,
What is going on with it?
Yeah, that's it.
You promised that, I mean, how can you pass something in zoning and it's not, we
Yeah.
can't even push it forward? I'm angry about that. I live it every Wednesday and weekend. I want to invite you to my house. I want you to sit on my front porch.
Can you record?
What is going on with it?
We'll play it.
Can I answer?
Well,
yes,
Did you get the meter? Did you, you know,
we have, no, we.
we're just trying the other meter and it does, it's not.
It's not
good enough.
doing exactly what we need to, so.
Can you get
Robert
independent agents?
is working on getting a new meter that will do what we need to. In the meantime, we're filing that injunction, as I promised you when I saw you the other day.
I
Those-
know, but I just know these people are.
Come on, you've gotta help
Are
us.
going to go through
So
this.
sweet.
I remember across from Lewis's Market, there was something.
Uh-huh,
And it was a noise ordinance, they put in a petition and you hired an outside company to come in and do a meter reading.
Robert, were you here when that happened?
No,
I wasn't.
It was several
Supervisor.
years ago, you could do it then. Why am I like sitting here month after month? What's with the meter? What's with the meter? I mean. You told everybody it was ready and we asked you, we sat here,
Yeah.
all
For
your
sure.
T's crossed and everything. I know you're angry, but you have
We're
no
not angry.
idea, Michael.
I'm not angry with you, I agree with you,
He's angry with me.
I'm not angry with you.
No,
I mean, I'm just, I
No, the problem is
I'm
there's
just
nothing we can do
bringing
and everyone's angry with us,
Yeah.
that's
I have
okay.
been going through this and then it's like, oh, it's not here. Oh, and it's not.
trust me, this has been, you wouldn't believe how many times I've attempted to reach out to this company that has the exact one we need, but refuses to get in touch with us, so we've moved on elsewhere to get something similar. I would like to enforce it with what we have now, at least trying.
I agree, I don't see why Ken can't go out with his phone and at least try.
Right, I mean, even the meter that we have now, it works, Robert can, go get the meter.
No, don't get the meter, don't.
I'm gonna say we have it.
It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if we have it, the question is, can we get our zoning officer to go out and enforce
If we
it?
can raise the noise level on the basis, right?
I wanna show that we do.
I'll tell you why. What they're gonna do, they're gonna go through this loop.
Correct,
and
that's
they're
why
gonna
we don't
say,
wanna just go out.
It's only my friends doing it, we're not charging. So I'm gonna hit them on every side for the noise and this.
Well, these won't go to the zoning board, these will go exactly downstairs to the district judge, who's been on a very good calendar, because other enforcements that we've been filing. I don't know, Diana, how many have you filed in the last couple of weeks? Couple dozen?
Can we just move forward with him? I actually think the phone is better than this thing.
Yes.
Because it records over a period of time. I mean, the problem is we can do it and then issue a citation and then they can try to fight it and say,
We can have the district judge.
but they can, I mean, it's up to the district
Yeah.
judge to decide whether it's good enough. And while we wait, I don't see why we can't do that.
I agree.
Well, do you have people in place? Like, if there's a problem, do you have the ability to send somebody out immediately?
Not really.
Not on the immediate basis every single time. Yes, Robert has volunteered, anyone can do that,
Robert has
file a
volunteered.
complaint, and anyone can fill out the complaint, which I don't know if we have.
I
I
have,
don't-
you know how many?
I don't-
And then Robert calls me back and said it's not enforceable. I have Riccabona has, I put 5 in, Rick Obama's put 4 in, I stopped calling because I'm like, nobody's gonna do
Alright,
anything
well,
over
I
there.
didn't know that anyone told you it was unenforceable, because that's not,
I took this to the zoning officer, he said it was unenforceable.
well, you know what? It doesn't matter what his opinion is anymore on that.
He's the zoning.
But
Right there were 9 complaints put in. And nothing was done about it. He said it's unenforceable.
I stood there with the meter for what, a half an hour, and I'd call out the numbers. to Tammy, and she'd write them down, we had all listed. What,
put it on paper.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Help them.
File it though.
You help them make a mess.
Around somewhere.
Yeah.
Um,
But to file it, you can't just. Anyone can file it. It doesn't have to be 10.
No,
You had all the,
I
File
offered to
paperwork.
do it, and I was told that,
No,
that was not
because
enforcing
Can a
those.
supervisor enforce?
anyone can file.
The ordinance
downstairs.
says it has to be a certified meter operated by a certified and trained person. If you don't have a certified meter and you don't have a certified and
This
trained
is the
person,
smart guy
you're
here.
not going to be able to use that meter.
Then you-
Then we-
And all you're gonna do is lose in front of the judge and further empower and validate the other.
So then we need that,
There's
that's
no
why
true record, there's no true.
So you're
record,
waiting
there's no
for-
track or anything.
the device.
Okay,
Can
can
Very
you,
good, very good.
Expedite,
So we need to get independent.
we talked about
Commission.
Robert is.
Alright, Christie.
So.
thank you.
And then Mr.
My
Plaza,
question
I
is
heard your
about-
last name.
So when all of it talks about this noise ordinance, how many meetings did the noise ordinance occupy? 5, 6, over months
More
and
than that,
months
sure.
and months, right, Robert?
Fire.
That it was, we heard, let's get it into place, let's pass it, we'll fix it later, Robert, I'll go out and do it in the middle of the night.
By the way, can I just say, I always said the best way to go out of this was the business, because I knew that the noise ordinance was gonna be hard as hell to implement and we were gonna have problems. Just for the record,
But we.
I'm doing it anyway as an attempt.
Promise that this is the solution.
Who said-
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go out. We're gonna train people. We're gonna get people certified. I'll do it. Robert, I'll get certified. I volunteer. And why, Ron, didn't you point any of this out during those meetings that it has to be a?
It was
It is,
pointed out
it's in the
several
ordinance.
times. I
Was it?
told everyone, I've been 26 years solicitor in Upper Mount Bethel Township. They've had an ordinance there for 26 years. They've never used it. What does that tell you? And I said that at a meeting more than once.
Well done. We need to listen to this gentleman over here
So
more often.
where do we go from here?
Do we have
With
an
the
ordinance that was passed that is BS?
No, it's not BS. You just gotta have someone who is certified and trained in using a proper noise meter. Once you do that, now you're ready to go.
Okay, but why didn't the other township that you represent, why do you say they never used it?
Because they believe it's unenforceable.
Here's
They don't wanna spend the time and money to do what I believe needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
I also volunteered to be trained,
You
and
did?
certified, but I was told that because I'm a supervisor, I can't do that.
Okay, so it needs to be an independent group to do that, right? It'd be cheaper than training anybody here. Sure, you guys are getting $200 an hour.
I think the only solution is to find someone who is a trained, certified person.
Wait,
So then why did we spend so much time on this? work?
hold on. No, yeah,
And false hope, giving false hope to these
Yeah,
people.
really.
Christine, we're not gonna play this game. We passed an ordinance in good faith. We've worked very hard. We figured out that this didn't work when we got it. I think that the numbers can be filed. I think you can file a case right now.
Well, the lawyers just tell you can't.
Yes, well,
Maybe change the ordinance.
You can.
You
Yeah, but if you lose, you're gonna just empower the other
I
side.
think that word
Certified sound test.
no.
In court.
So,
Make it.
so look,
Township and.
I am hoping in the next 10 days that we will have something because this guy's been raring to go test it any second, so he's in charge of getting it in the next 10 days.
But
Is that
I
certified
tried-
device?
This is certified.
Inevitably, you're gonna have to get an independent person to come in and do it, because they are not gonna rely on the information from the gentleman
No.
here and that device.
I would also suggest there
So
are two
it's
supervisors here who can run this kind of equipment. Myself and Michael, because we're used to it. But unless we're told that we as supervisors can do this, Then we're not.
Look, the existing
Question,
ordinance,
could anybody be certified?
Sir, may I have your name, please?
Mark Sylvan,
Thank you.
could anybody be certified to do this and go out and do it on their own?
technically, yes.
Okay, what's involved in certification, how much?
Probably nothing.
Oh, there's no cost to.
Well, I'm not so much cost, I'm just talking about what needs to be done.
It's
What
generally
needs to be
just-
done is we need to have the device. That's we've been trying to get this device that'll do everything we can, and
Right, but how does somebody get certain, because you're saying you get,
the company does it.
Yes,
oh, the.
so they will train it, so that's why I went for this gentleman named Mike Oster, I forget the name of the company now,
Doesn't,
but you're right.
That's a matter, just get it, no.
What's the name of the device? I'll get it,
We'll all get it.
I'll get it.
You're gonna spend $900 on,
Well, I'll get it.
we're gonna take care
What's
of
the name
getting
of
it.
the device? I'm curious,
I mean, there's a specific model, I don't remember the specific model, but I mean, it's a decibel
Can
meter
you
that,
email that to me?
yes,
I'll get one.
so.
You understand what it has to be.
if you get a hold of them,
If
they
you
res-
tell me what it has to be,
I
that's
can
all
tell-
I'll
I
get.
can tell you, or Michael can tell you.
all right.
We use this kind of equipment all the time.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm serious as a heart attack. Tell me what to get and I will show up here as soon as I possibly can with it in hand.
great, if she can get it, great, it's good.
If you get it, we'll just reimburse you.
There you go.
So what's the name of it?
Well, send it to you, we don't have it in front of
Email
us.
to me And
Fine.
I will track this down.
There's one last comment.
Now somebody has to be trained.
Yes, and they complete that.
That's hard.
Oh, we got two
No.
volunteers,
Yeah.
two volunteers.
It's mainly weekends that people will.
Well, we've proven we can do things on weekends now, so we're
Could you
we're
help
moving
with
that
this?
direction.
Yes.
Would that be out of the scope?
Just a class.
It's like 30 minutes and then you get a.
Just move on.
Yes.
Please.
Sorry, that's cool.
Yeah, I have a quick question about the injunction, and this is just coming from someone who does not understand the process entirely. When the injunction is filed, what will happen at that point, and when we kind of expect to start seeing some movement in that, like, let's go on the, regular, hopefully maybe get tomorrow, we can get the answer that we need, they'll file tomorrow, fingers crossed.
An answer will be filed by the property owner and or the applicant, as I'll call them. Then at that point, the judge will schedule a hearing to determine whether or not an injunction should issue. I suspect that the applicant will be filing an appeal. The property owner and the applicant will be filing an appeal of the zoning hearing board decision. They will, that's an appeal with the county court. They will ask for a stay so that they can continue to operate. And if the court grants that stay, my guess is the court would then also grant the same stay in the injunction. So then nothing moves until the court decides what happens with the zoning hearing board case. Of course, the court can also say, no, we're not gonna grant the stay. You have to stop until we decide the case. That could happen, but that's how that will work.
If they don't
And it
stop
will
there,
not
they're
be
in
done
violation of
quickly.
the court
It
order.
will take some time to go through that process.
Have they appealed?
I have not believed they've appealed, but the lawyer at last night's meeting indicated they intended to.
They haven't appealed.
Well, the written order just came out.
They got 30 days from the date of the written decision. The written
Okay, so
decision just came out a
now,
week
isn't
ago.
it?
They have
The
until
written
August
decision came out
14th.
a week or two ago.
Oh,
I mean, you know,
Oh, they got 2 weeks.
She informed me they're going to appeal, they're going to
that
appeal.
doesn't surprise me, and I'm sure they'll file.
So the hope is that the judge says you have to stop and tell the appeal, but very, very possible, the judge says, well, you can keep doing what you're doing until the appeal's over. So yes, that's the nightmare. that you-
They have to appeal.
Are they stopped now?
No,
No.
No.
They're just not as many riders,
Yeah.
and I'm not certain why, because it's so hot, because of bad.
They're trying to be crafty.
Because someone
Because they had a
died.
death, maybe?
yes.
Yeah. Somebody got killed?
That
Yes.
happens all the time. That's,
That on. All right,
Motion to adjourn.
wait, one
motion
quick
by,
question,
it's
one quick question.
the
sorry.
last one, because motions to adjourn are not debatable.
Very briefly, would you guys consider organizing Buttermilk Falls either into a township park or? Well, Ron, the EAC talked about this. Thank you, Michael, for participating. But Buttermilk Falls is beautiful. In my youth, it was visible from 209. It's a beautiful thing, and if whether or not we have it's something you guys would consider moving on, I'm not sure whatever you want to do with it, but it's a beautiful piece of property. It's at the gateway and it's sitting there shrouded in trees. Used to be the township swimming hole. I've been in it,
My husband.
yeah, and it's a beautiful thing. You can see it from 209. It could be a park, it could be cleared and whatever, but would you consider Buttermilk Falls?
I think we'll certainly hear it out, but we're gonna, EAC should have some instruction fairly soon on
Yeah,
recommendations on that sort of stuff, and then we can look then and solicitors' advice on the referendum, et cetera. So we'll,
thank you.
yeah.
I love what you did with Marshall Creek Waterfall, the whole layout of that, construction of everything is just incredible. I went there the other day, I see they're actually charging non-residents now.
Yes.
Yeah,
And what about the house? I hear it's being pulled down, because it's gonna cost too much money to,
yeah, that was in the beginning part of the meeting, so we got a grant to take that down.
take it down. Could you possibly use it on, probably root
That's-
sets?
Yeah, I'm gonna-
There's a motion to adjourn. I can tell you about it after.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
all
it.
right. We can talk after too.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Great meeting you all.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.